getting to go to theaters as much. Like we had COVID, we have streamers, and like I love a good stream, but like the movie experience is so special, and it's something that I looked forward to so much as a kid. It's something I look forward to as an adult, and it's rare that something like pulls you into theaters like that. And now if you are going to theaters, it's for a big, I don't want to say it, I love superhero movies, especially a certain Deadpool and Wolverine. And it's amazing though, but like that's a great example. Watching Deadpool and Wolverine in an audience of people, if you're watching that at home, like it's just there's the human experience of people watching and feeling together, laughing and crying, and like you walk out and you feel connected with strangers in a way that's just like there's nothing like it. And this movie, they don't really turn books like this into movies anymore. And you're not really seeing movie stars be made anymore. I mean, this is her first movie.
Hi, friends. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. Some of you in my comments have stated that anytime I say I just noticed something, you know it's going to be good. And I just noticed something. So this is going to be good. It's about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's case. Listen, there has been an amazing, overwhelming amount of people that have been sharing my videos, and I really appreciate that. And I just want to say thanks to all of you that have subscribed recently. I kind of do my own thing over here on YouTube, so it's always nice to see other creators sharing the content that I'm doing and getting praised from other people. I also know that some of my opinions are not being, you know, viewed the same, and that's great. There's so many different voices, so many different people that have experience. So I think it's amazing that all of you have so many different places to get information from. I can only go off what I find, my experience covering cases like this. If you're new, I've been doing this channel for 6 years, 7 years, but before that, I was a writer, and I've been doing investigative work like this for 7 or 8 years now. And I've covered a ton of criminal cases along with civil cases. I've also been sued. So I know myself, like the ins and outs of going through civil litigation. I know how judges rule based on the different cases I've been involved in. I've been in federal court and state court, so I know the differences there. So I can pull a lot of experience of my own along with what I've covered in all these different cases I've worked on or covered on this channel. But in this case, this is a civil case, okay? So this is not a criminal case. No one's going to jail. There's no criminal charges. Some of us wish there could be, but there are not. And right now, everything in a allegation is in a civil complaint is an allegation, and you just have to remember that civil complaints often throw a lot out there. Some of it may or may not be true. Some of it's just complete hyperbole or just outright defamation placed in a document, because in court, you can file just about anything and stick it behind the privilege of court to guard from defamation. So anything that either side writes, they can say whatever they want about the other, and it could be completely false. But the difference between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni is he has quite a bit of receipts, whereas Blake does not. So last week, there was this huge issue, right? Because she filed this motion to dismiss. And it was hard because a lot of us got sort of stuck on this. She can use this one law called 47.1. And if she can hide behind this California 47.1, it doesn't allow retaliatory lawsuits if you bring forth claims of SH, okay, or SA. And you can't be retaliated against by getting a defamation claim or the like. However, they're not only suing for defamation, okay? So they're also suing for extortion. And I think it's different here that it's not just about defamation of what she's saying about him, but also extortion. And the extortion is added because it proves malice. So it's going to be really hard for the judge in this case to apply a 47.1, given the fact that there's a lot of evidence here by Baldoni's side that has a pretty significant timeline of what is involved in the creative process and why this creative fight and her getting creative control is a huge component of her sexual harassment claims. And in her motion to dismiss, she specifically stated that she did not get any more creative control. Okay. with her sexual harassment claims, and that they've developed a convoluted conspiracy theory that she developed all of this a year in advance, okay, in order to take over a film. Well, that's actually what she did. At least that's my opinion. But she did get creative control because in the 17-point document that they all keep bragging about Miss Lively and she's using to as her, smoking gun, there's language in there that says that any creative disagreements have to go through the A-list third party for mediation. Why would you bring up creative differences in a sexual harassment claim? Just weird, right? Why would you want to see the dailies in a sexual harassment claim? Why would you be dictating who can see you on set? Why would you be dictating who can see and what Isabella can do? Why would you be dictating who gets to see the dailies, who gets to edit? I mean, these are all the things that they can't answer to. And I found a transcript. There's this amazing person that's on Reddit that gets the transcripts from the court reporter. And the hearing was like the first time they met in court. It was early February. They were going to be talking about like a gag order. They were going to be going over, the discovery issues, if there was going to be a protective order, what plans were for the motion to dismiss, or if there was going to be a motion to dismiss, or all of these different things. And then they fought about the statements that Friedman was making, along with what Friedman said that Blake's team was making publicly. And then the judge did not issue a gag order. And because, the mainstream media, they put out this content and they put it out very fast. They don't really tell you everything that happens in these hearings. And there was a point in the hearing. So one of the issues with the complaints on both sides was that the judge was telling Blake's team that her complaint actually looked like they were affirmative claims. So it says your client has made affirmative claims in the complaint against Wayfarer Studios, some of which your client has alleged. Maybe much of it would also take the form of counterclaims to the claims of Wayfarer Studios. I'm sure, Mr. Gottlieb, you have given thought when it comes time to answer whether to plead those counterclaims or whether to just stand on the complaint and how the mechanics will work. Basically, what the judge, in my opinion, was signaling to them was that what Blake's side of the table was doing was giving an alternate theory to what happened. And so he's saying, wait, it's like Wayfair has this side of the story, but your complaint is offering a completely different side of the story. And this seems like this could just be two sides of a story with counterclaims, right? So maybe you should answer with counterclaims. But instead, her side says, no, we're going to seek a motion to dismiss and we'll just amend our complaint. But when they amended their complaint, they did more affirmative claims. And so I think one of the biggest issues for them being successful on this motion to dismiss is that the judge has to look at both complaints as though they are factual. And so they can't just look at Blake's claims and say, well, she brought forth sexual harassment claims and this isn't, I have to dismiss it because of 47.1. If Wayfair has claims that present a completely different side of the story, that might make it seem like these claims that she's bringing may lack legal standing, or there might be a lack of facts, or it may be misleading. That could be a huge problem for her. And I keep wanting to go back to the fact that throughout all of the rulings of this judge, Blake's side has spent a lot of time trying to tell everyone through their filings that this is not a case about extortion. This is not a case about creative differences. This is not a case about, she took over a film. It's a case about she came up forward with sexual harassment claims and they retaliated and they can't, all of this is a retaliation and this is continuing of their retaliation. And they're putting out really bombastic and divisive language, calling this Darvo tactics of this is straight out of the abuser's playbook. They're flipping the narrative and they're saying that we're doing this to them. They're doing all of this and they're trying to tell a story to the judge, and the judge isn't really believing them because every time the judge is presented with their allegations, they always remind Blake's side that, listen, there's a whole nother side of the story here, right? There's two sides that have claims, and one side involves theft and the other side involves sexual harm. And we need to figure out which one is true, And so I have a hard time believing, based on the way that the judge has been viewing the case from the beginning, that this is going to be a dismissed case because of 47.1, because I don't think the judge can ignore the fact that there is a lot of evidence here about the extortion and alleged extortion. And another thing that happened in the same meeting was that they got really annoyed by that amended complaint with the timeline of relevant events that has all of the screenshots. And they specifically pointed out pages that were related to the actual extortion and statements made by Sony. So if they have issue with this timeline of relevant events and they're pointing out to when Blake they point out specifically to the point in time when Blake goes to Book Bonanza and she gets another screening and she's threatening not to promote the film. Like that's what they said is page 80 through 82 or 80 through 81 and it's all about that period of time when she hijacked the film. And that's why they want this timeline of relevant events out. They want it out because they don't want that information in the public domain. They want it struck. So they obviously believe that this timeline of relevant event really damages their claims, and it kind of does. So everyone got super freaked out about the motion to dismiss. I kind of told you about how the judge ruled on the stay of discovery, which was really good news for Justin. But I wanted to talk you through some of these arguments in her motion to dismiss and bring it back to the complaint of what she claims is sexual harassment versus what he says in his complaint. How she's twisting words to fit a narrative. And it's kind of disturbing. I've never seen, in my opinion, gaslighting like this before. So in her motion to dismiss on page 5, she says that his amended complaint acknowledges onset sexual harassment claims. Okay. She says on the first day Mr. Baldoni entered Miss Lively's trailer to voice his concerns that Miss Lively looked unflattering and publicly released photographs. During the meeting, Mr. Baldoni became emotional and told Miss Lively that he thought her appearance was failing to meet audience expectations. As a director, when the photographs went viral, is it unrealistic for a director to talk about wardrobe and trying to make clear to the actress that the audience has an expectation? She was getting a ton of backlash. They were calling her old, frumpy. That doesn't qualify as sexual harassment. He says at some point in May or June of 2023, a simulated nude scene was filmed without an intimacy coordinator present. On the face, that sounds horrible, doesn't it? Right? They claimed sexual harassment. Do you know what they filmed that day? A scene that Blake wrote. So please explain to me how a scene that Blake wrote is actual sexual harassment. Because the scene that they are discussing is the shower scene. They reference paragraph 108. It says, months after the demand for nudity rider became a part of the 17 demands and presented as if it were Wayfarer and not Lively who was the cause of its absence, the demand also stated that any footage previously shot without the rider in place may not be used without Lively and her legal representative's consent, despite the fact that no simulated sex had been filmed yet. In fact, the only one scene that had been even filmed was a scene that Lively knew of well in advance, given that she wrote it herself, knew when it would be filmed, and directed the action herself, never requesting a nudity rider or an intimacy coordinator. This scene was when she was in the shower after she's picked up by Atlas, after she's almost raped by Ryle. And she's standing and she's looking in the mirror and she's looking at herself and she's kind of like remembering everything that she went through. And she's kind of piecing together all the different events she went through with Ryle. She's literally the showers in the background. You don't see anything but from the shoulders up. It's simulated as though she's naked, but you don't see any nudity. It's shoulders up in the shower, looking at herself, crying. And they see she wrote that herself. So they're using this as a way to say that this proves sexual harassment because Blake wrote a scene and filmed a scene of herself looking in the mirror. Another one was Mr. Baldoni discussed orgasming while having sex with his wife, remarking that those have been some of the most beautiful moments between them. When in fact, he says that that conversation took place at her house. And it was when they were working on scenes and developing the scenes together for how they were going to choreograph the love scenes. And this is what it says. For example, in response to a proposal from the intimacy coordinator that Baldoni's character Ryle not orgasm after he satisfied Lily, Lily remarked, "I'd be mortified if that happened to me," personalizing the character's sexual act. Baldoni, following Lively's lead in what he understood to be an attempt to connect with and develop the characters, remarked that those have been some of the most beautiful moments between myself and his wife. They then moved on. So they're discussing an intimate scene, which, by the way, there was no orgasming in this film. There was no going down on each other. There was barely any quote unquote sex. In another instance, Lively and Baldoni were developing their scene, and Lively said, "I don't want it to look like porn," then offered up that she had never seen porn in her life, a very personal fact. Baldoni complimented her and said that's wonderful because unfortunately he had been first exposed to it when he was 10 and struggled with it for a period of years, which he writes about openly. So she claims that he sexually harassed her by talking about his wife and him having beautiful moments only after she said she would be mortified if that happened to her. Another one that she's using to prove sexual harassment was Mr. Baldoni improvised while filming romantic scenes, which was consistent with his own prior experience of rehearsing or filming scenes multiple times, often with variations without needing permission. But do you know what that actual paragraph says in the complaint? Doesn't say that. So they're referencing paragraph 91. Paragraph 91 says, "Moreover, it was Lively who engaged in unchoreographed kissing scenes. One scene, again, captured on camera, exhibits Lively pulling Baldoni in to kiss her. It is clear Lively was initiating unchoreographed kissing. In one take, she pulled Baldoni in and kissed him once, in another, twice. And the number of kisses entirely initiated by Lively changed at her whim. Baldoni, as a professional actor who, among other roles, played the lead love interest in television's Jane the Virgin for 5 years, is like most actor accustomed to rehearsing or filming scenes multiple times, often with variations, without needing permission while in character. While Lively now takes issue with an innocuous improvisation Baldoni as Ryle may have allegedly initiated while in character, Baldoni treated their relationship on camera as professional, each playing their part, each doing their job. If no one was supposed to improvise, Baldoni would have no way of knowing based on Lively's own actions. Lively demonstrated again and again that this was normal and acceptable part of filming romantic scenes." So they're claiming that Baldoni there is admitting that he improvises. And so therefore, this is sexual harassment. But that whole paragraph says that there's camera evidence of her improvising kissing him. And there is actual documented camera evidence of her pulling him in, even after she made him file sign that 17-point document. Another one that she claims proves sexual harassment was Mr. Heath was present in Miss Lively's hair and makeup trailer while she had her body makeup removed. And despite her asking him to turn away while they spoke, he may have made eye contact with her at one point, later apologizing. And then Miss Lively told him that it made her feel uncomfortable. Eye contact is apparently sexual harassment when a producer is going into a trailer because she asked him to go there, by the way. And in paragraph 104, they describe it as Baldoni and Heath were led into situations that would later be characterized as harassment. Lively herself invited Baldoni in her trailer to work on lines while she pumped breast milk. She regularly breastfed in front of Baldoni while they had meetings. Heath was invited into her trailer for a meeting at her request while she was having makeup removed from her collarbone because she was not able to meet at another time. Her nanny, makeup artist, and assistant were present, and Lively was not topless, as she claims elsewhere, but was fully covered while either nursing or pumping breast milk. In this instance, he was instructed to turn away while they spoke, and he respectfully did so while they figured out a time to meet with the other producers standing just outside the door. And as Heath pleaded with Lively to have a meeting the next morning to avoid her getting home late and losing shooting time the following day, while it was possible he inadvertently made eye contact at one point, he does not recall. Lively later mentioned he did and it made her uncomfortable, to which he responded, "I'm so sorry, I really didn't realize." She responded, "I know you weren't trying to cop a look," and they moved on. So she invites him into his trailer so they can have a conversation, and then she accuses him of making eye contact with her, and that's sexual harassment. And this is her saying there's proof in his first amended complaint that they sexually harassed me. Another one was Baldoni hired a friend to play the obstetrician in a scene in which Miss Lively's character gives birth and in which he would be close proximity to her genitalia. Can someone please explain to me how, when you take a script and the script says that you're going to have to give birth on camera and it's going to be simulated birth, that you wouldn't hire an obstetrician? And can you please tell me how a doctor playing the part of a doctor catching the baby is somehow becoming sexual? Because in paragraph 119, she says, this point appeared to relate to Miss Lively's misleading claim that Baldoni inappropriately cast a personal friend to play the obstetrician during Lively's birth scene. Baldoni casting an experienced actor who happens to be friends and is no different than casting Lively's sister, who was cast because she is Lively's sister. The actor portraying the obstetrician is an award-winning Shakespearean trained actor with an MFA in acting from UCLA, in addition to appearing in numerous hit television shows, has toured nationally with a Tony Award-winning acting company and attended Oxford's acting program on full scholarship. His accolades and performance speak for themselves. Lively's current complaint states she was alarmed when Baldoni introduced him as a friend and allowed him to play this intimate role in which the actor's face and hands were close in proximity to her near nude genitalia, categorizing the experience as invasive and humiliating. It is Lively's suggestion that a highly trained and experienced actor would have an unseemly interest in being in close proximity to her near nude genitalia, to which she stated she only had a small piece of fabric covering her, which is not true. So, again, casting someone to play an obstetrician is apparently sexual harassment because they would be in close proximity to her. And he used the word sexy to describe her at least 2 times, including once when she was wearing a onesie with a big coat. 61. Paragraph 61 says, Lively herself set the tone for personal discussions on set, including what language was acceptable. For example, on one occasion while filming a restaurant scene, Lively sat on the floor in painfully expensive shoes while discussing with a group of male cast and crew how sexy her shoes were. No issue using the word sexy herself, but apparently took note both times Baldoni said that word in her presence. Do you see what she did there? So he says she sat down, took her shoes off, and talked about her sexy shoes. And then he says the 2 times he used the word sexy is proof that he sexually harassed her. Again, that's not what was said. And a judge is going to see right through this. The judge has the ability to read the complaint to see that this isn't being portrayed that way. But her lawyers are writing the motion to dismiss with the assumption that you and I aren't going to go back and read their complaint and track it to what was actually said. So the final one that she claims for the sexy is relating to the onesie, which is Baldoni and Wayfarer clearly agreed that coworkers should respect physical space. Lively's constant confusion of references to her character as played by Lively as opposed to Lively herself became problematic and interfered with production. This was caused in large part by Lively's persistent desire to direct and inability to accept direction. For example, her allegation that Baldoni inappropriately called her sexy was in fact a reference to a scene where everyone was wearing onesies, but Lively was covering her onesie with a big coat. This was the scene when they were at the bar. This is actually when Jenny Slate's character announces that she's pregnant. And they are all wearing onesies. It's a whole thing, I guess, with the Bruins in Boston that they do this. And she's wearing a huge coat that doesn't make sense in comparison to what everyone else is wearing. And Lively was covering her onesie with a big coat. Baldoni, her director, asked that she take off the coat so that her onesie would be visible in the scene. Baldoni said it will be hot, as it was 90 degrees in the small bar with no air conditioning. Lively mischaracterized this in her complaint as Baldoni referring to her as hot, using the slang meaning of the term. And given that Lively herself had earlier expressed to him she wanted her character's wardrobe to be sexier, he encouraged her to accept direction by saying, it's sexy, meaning that without the big coat, the wardrobe was sexier, as Lively had said she wanted it to be. She took this personally. She was unable to take direction, later alleging his behavior was inappropriate regarding her self-chosen wardrobe, stating, that's not what I'm going for. Baldoni, recognizing that she may have taken his direction personally and appeared offended, apologized more than once. So if you see the first video that they put out of them dancing, they're actually fighting about, he's like, no, I'm going to direct you now. And in interviews, she often talks about her confusion of speaking in first person like she was Lily and then not being Lily. Lively doesn't actually act, she plays herself. And I think when you don't play a character and you're just playing yourself, that's her problem because she's taking things personally and acting like the statements are being made to her personally when they're actually acting in a film. And so she can cherry pick these experiences and act as though they're happening to her when they're actually in character. No different than when they're slow dancing and they're supposed to be acting like they're in love and he's, caressing her hair and he's kissing her on the head, which is what happens when you slow dance. And she's saying he was doing that to me, not to Lily. No, he wasn't. He was doing that to Lily. He wouldn't have been dancing if it were not for Lily. All of this is on film, by the way. So when we talk about how accurate like how reasonable her sexual harassment claims are, the normal jury has to be able to differentiate between what she says is sexual harassment and what he says. And if I were on the jury, any of the claims that she made do not qualify to me as sexual harassment. It's a woman that's not allowing people to say things to her that she doesn't want to hear, or she's instigating sexual conversation and then she's saying, well, you said it then, so that's sexual harassment. So she's baiting them. So if this is how she starts out her motion to dismiss, that's not a good news because the judge has already stated that a lot of her claims come off as almost like an alternative answer to what the claims against her are. He has to believe that what Mr. Baldoni says is true. He has to take the claims as fact. So he can't just dismiss it saying that he only sued her because of sexual harassment. What if he sued her because she was trying to extort him for more money with a frivolous lawsuit and used claims of sexual harassment? Because in her motion to dismiss, I'd like to remind you what is unclear is the FAC does not allege what money or property Miss Lively received from the Wayfair parties for supposedly extorting her way into editing a movie for no additional pay. Indeed, this FAC self-defeating claim appears to be that Miss Lively bullied her way into doing more work than she was contractually obligated to do without additional compensation. And they have that highlighted in bold and italicized. While Wayfair profited handsomely from the movie's blockbuster success. Notably, they did not pursue action against her for the supposed extortion until after she filed her claims. Well, because you're currently extorting them still. You can use lawsuits for extortion purposes, by the way. So, fear not, friends. I always will remind people when you're listening and you're consuming content, you all have the right to consume and listen to whoever you want. But the best thing I can always recommend for everyone is that take the documents, look at them yourself if you have the time. If you don't, this is what I'm giving to you, and then review and say, is this what was said? And what does this document say that they're referencing? And when you cross reference, the math, as they say, doesn't math. Her claims start to fall apart. And if you are a jury and she's asking this to go to trial, had to decide, is this sexual harassment? And if there's not more than what she's provided here as documented evidence, it's really just he said, she said. It's different interpretations. And it doesn't legally meet the standard of what the average person would consider sexual harassment. So, what are your thoughts about this? The fact that her lawyers are terrified about the document, the timeline, having the extortion evidence and wanting that tossed out. They want it strict from the record, but doesn't make the evidence go away, by the way. And the claims that they've admitted to sexual harassment. And now you know and can see what they believe is sexual harassment. Do you really think a judge is going to throw this out? Or did she just basically expose herself? And did the judge saying to Lively that her claims don't look like just claims, they look like affirmative claims, meaning they look like another side of the story and they could have some legal issues to manage and get all the way through to trial? Affirmative claims can produce counterclaims They can produce all kinds of headaches. They can also not have legal standing. They can just be frivolous crap just thrown out. I think the judge is a little bit more onto her than she knows, kind of the way that Sony was. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.